So today I'll be showing you guys my coursework from my second year at UAL. So just a bit of recap. I've been studying at UAL for 3 years now. So I did the foundation course and now I'm in the graphic communication design course at CSM and I just finished my second year. I just thought it would be good to share all of my work with you guys if you wanted to know. I'll be explaining everything including the briefs, the projects, the schedule, classes, all the stuff that I can think of. I haven't done a video for my year 1 work yet because I don't really like my year 1 work, but if you want to see that, I'll make that as well. But let's just start with the second year first. So in the second year, we have 4 units, 5, 6, 7, and then creative union. On average, we only have 3 classes per week, and each class is only about 2 to 3 hours. Usually it's 3 hours. So you don't have a lot of time in classes, but you can go into the studio to work and meet up with your friends or talk to tutors. Depends on how much you're willing to go in. Really? So the 3 classes, we have 1 for lectures, 1 for your practices, and then 1 for your platforms. Practices and platforms are basically classes that you can choose what you want to learn. Within the practice, we have 5 things that you can choose, which is typography, lens, computation, context, and publication. I don't really know what context is. So basically the 5 are different areas of graphic design. So depends on what you like and what you want to learn, you can choose. And then platforms are themes, kind of. It's very weird. But anyways, we have 5 platforms. E&E, which is experience and environment. Usually the briefs in E&E are quite open. You can basically do whatever you want. Usually about designing for the future and using your surrounding to inspire your work. The work that people produce in E&E are very interactive and abstract, very weird. And then INS is similar to in E, information and system. The briefs in INS are also quite open, but it's focusing on data visualization and using systems in your work. So for example, using diagrams or boxes or I don't know, but it's basically about structure and data and systems, like the name. And then we have S&I. S&I is strategy and identity, which is just branding. You create a visual for a brand. And then NNV. NNV is narrative and voice, and usually people who really like illustration will go to this platform. It's like about storytelling and visualizing stuff. I've done it once. I found it quite boring and the briefs are usually really bland. Sorry. Okay. And then the last one is T&M, which is time and movement, and it's all about moving image and videography and editing movies and stuff like that. Okay, so that's the 5 platforms. Let's go into the first unit. At the beginning of the year, we start with unit 5 and 6. These 2 units go at the same time, so you're basically working on 2 projects at once. I'll start with unit 6 first. So in unit 6, we have 2 projects and we can choose from the 5 platforms that I just explained. You can choose up to 2 or you can just repeat the 1. But it's not guaranteed that you will get the platform that you choose. You have to have your first choice, second choice, and then third choice. Each project runs for 4 weeks and we have 5 classes. The first one that I did was in E&E, experience and environment, and my project is called Gathered Leaves. The brief that I got was called Derive. We had to basically create a psychogeographical map. It's like a map, but it has to show more than just location. The first workshop, remember we have 5, so the first one is just to explain the brief. They'll tell us some references that we can use. They gave us a specific location that we had to work with, so everyone in the class worked on the same location. The area that we got is near Euston Square. Yeah, so after that class I researched more into the area that we got and I found that there's a lot of parks, so I wanted to do something with nature. It was quite obvious that I wanted to go in that direction. So for the second class is we went to that area and everyone separately walked around and collected data however we wanted. You could draw, interview, write, just different ways of recording data. What I did was I took pictures and also collected natural materials from all the parks in the area. For example, like flowers, grass, dried leaves, and I was prepared. I went there with Ziploc bags and plastic bags. I came across a YouTube video and that guy was making paper out of grass and dried leaves, so I wanted to do that as well. So I purchased mold and deco from Amazon and started making paper out of the materials. The flowers that I got from the park, I pressed them. I just put them like in between books and then pressed them so that it dries flat. And then I used it to make paper by using paper pulp and then place it on. I ended up with some paper, and at this point I didn't really know what I was trying to communicate with my work. Going into the third workshop, which is a thematic analyzation of the materials that you've collected and the process you've done so far. And then that kind of led me to the theme of memories, like the fading away of memories and time and natural things. My friend told me to go interview people in the park and use their answers as content to add like another layer to the papers that I made. So I went to the parks again and interviewed people about their favorite memories of them surrounded by nature, which is really scary because I had to talk to strangers, but it was fine. No one creepy. I wanted to illustrate their answers. Visually, it's more engaging when it's drawings instead of writing. And then I wanted to print these drawings onto the paper that I made. I couldn't use like a normal digital printer, so I figured I would do lino printing, which, if you don't know, is when you have like rubber and then you carve ink and then stamp it on to the paper. I made the lino blocks and then went to print it at school because in CSM we have a printmaking workshop where we can go in and use the machines. So I have these individual pieces of paper, so I wanted to bind them together to make a publication. But then when I went into the fourth workshop, which is just to get feedback on the work in progress, people said that they didn't really understand what the paper is made out of and how that links to the illustrations. So they suggested that I make these little tags to go in between each page. And then for the cover of the book, I wanted to keep it quite simple because I didn't have time. So I went and bought a piece of green paper that really looked like seaweed and then did letterpress on them in the letterpress workshop. So I printed the title and a small description of the book and then combined everything together to make this book. So I'm really proud. Look at it. Nice. I wanted to explain more about the theme of what the book is communicating. I didn't really know while I was making the book, but it came to me along the way. I like that there's a link between making the paper is like making the materials last longer, and then printing the memories makes the memories last longer as well. A nice link between the process of making the book and the content within the book. Is that too deep? Maybe it's just bullshit, but it's okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The last class is where you bring in your work and then display it for other people in the course. And you can walk around and look at all the classes and all the people from other platforms as well. So what I did was I displayed this book and also had the raw materials and paper snippets that I didn't use just to make the display more interesting. And in the open studio, it's a good chance for you to get feedback from other people. So I had paper and then pens and people can write down what they thought of the project. Why am I out of breath? So this was the first project. Let's get to the second one. Hello. It's been like 2 months since I recorded the part that you just saw. My room's a lot more messy now. The second project in Unit 6 was in Information and System, and the brief is all about diagrams. There's also 5 classes in the second project. So the first workshop, we explored what a diagram is and how we can make one. People brought in pictures of what they think a diagram is, and then we grouped them, analyzed them, diagrammed the diagram, and the conclusion that the class got was everything can be a diagram, but I don't really agree with that. For me, a diagram has to represent information, have a communication system like repetitive shapes and visuals. Third, the audience has to be able to understand what the diagram is saying and what the information is, or else for me it's not a diagram. We also thought about how we can make a diagram, and for me it is 1, you have to gather data that is linked in some way, and 2, define what the data type is. Third, you have to create a system that can visualize the overall picture of the data, and 4, create a language that can visualize this system. And then lastly, we have to make it presentable so that people can understand it. And we got some tasks for the week, which is to make 2 diagrams. 1 is a diagram on how to boil an egg, and 2 is a diagram of how we design things. I just wanted my 2 diagrams to look cool. So for the egg diagram, I decided to use different types of egg so that there's more information to work with, and we also had to use only black and white, so I tried to illustrate the eggs as best as I can. I don't know if you can tell the difference without the color. Creating this diagram, I used the same systems that I got from the first workshop. And then for the design diagram, I don't really know. I still don't know how I design things, I guess. So I used lines and shapes and whatever to represent what I think my design process is. So I ended up with this. The lines kind of correlate to the actions a bit. What I got from making these 2 posters was the more data you have in the poster, the better it looks. And the second thing is both the bigger picture of the diagram and the smaller details communicate stuff. Because when you see a poster, you don't immediately go in and read what it says. Kind of judge the bigger picture first. Then the second workshop, we just reviewed what we had made. We thought about what makes a good diagram. So for me, after seeing all the posters, I feel like a good diagram needs to have an idea that is being communicated and is readable and understandable. Some people in the class made really abstract diagrams, and there's no way that you can gather information from what you're seeing. So I feel like that's not really a diagram, that's more like a painting. And 2, have a cohesive visual language. Maybe a pattern, a structure, shapes, something that is cohesive throughout the design. And then 3, I feel like it has to be cool. I don't want to read a boring diagram. And the second half of the workshop, we made a diagram of an apple. The starting point was an apple, and we had to put everything, every information, every association that we could think of with the apple on a diagram. What I got from making this mind map was having many types of data could also create more depth in the diagram that you're making. So for the week, we had to make an A4 publication, and you're basically doing the same thing with the apple, but now you get to choose a topic of your own. So for the last 2 weeks that I've been working on this project, I've been writing 1 page a day because my tutor, Paul, also writes 1 page a day, and he's been doing it for however many years. And I feel like it was a cool kind of diary reflection moment, so I started doing that at the beginning of the project. I've also been drawing a diagram a day. Then I started looking back and just to find if there's anything interesting. Then I found 1 bit of writing that was about a dream that I had, and the dream was about my mom, and I really liked the sentimental of the writing. I feel like it was a dream that really reflected what I was feeling and what I was going through at that time, so I wanted to use that in the publication. I was in a room and it had me, my mom, and some objects. So I thought a good way to visualize this data was to use floor plans. Thought of using wavy lines because it kind of represents the uncertainty of the dream. So I started sketching out what I wanted the floor plans to look like, what I remember from the dream. I also wanted to incorporate the process of dreaming. A lot of people might not really relate to the dream that I had, but I feel like everyone can relate to the dream diagrams because everyone dreams and sleeps, right? So I wanted things that people can relate to and things that might be more specific to my personal experience. I made it into a book, but when everything is done, I'll have to leave you. I don't remember where I left off, but so the third workshop was just a review of what we've made, and what I got from it was think about the balance of information and interpretation. What information should be shown clearly and what should be left for the audience to figure it out. I wanted my publication to have a bit of vagueness, but I also wanted each diagram to be understood clearly. So I think the vagueness of the book comes from zooming out and then looking at the overall picture of what is this storytelling. So after that workshop, I wanted to add in more dreams and also add real life experiences and diagrams about my environment and how that changed after my mom passed, and then made the whole thing into another book, which before I got to the final product, I experimented with 3 different forms of publication. One is a small one. I binded it on 3 sides, so the only way that you can open it is to tear each page apart. So as you view each page and tear it out, it becomes a memory. And then I made the A4 publication using kind of transparent paper. I like the softness of it. And then I made a huge A3 book. People can look into the details more, but I feel like the thing that worked best was the A4 publication because it was kind of simple, but the little play on the transparent paper helps bring out the content. That's how I made this book. Ta-da! It's kind of flimsy now that I look back at it. I don't really like the cover and the way I binded it. I would rather prefer it open this way rather than like this way, I guess. I think this book for me is very personal, and making the book, it allowed me to have time to think about her. But after everything is done, I'll have to leave you, which is the message that I saw in my dream that my mom had written to me. It is a publication about the fear of losing someone or your memories of someone, because people are temporary, but you kind of want some people to last forever. But I don't think that they can. So they just kind of exist in our memories, and sometimes they visit us in our dreams. I kind of really love, like, I see her a lot in my dreams. Remember when I said I drew 1 diagram every day? I also made another book just to showcase all of them. I have it right here, and I'm still doing this to this day. So I started on the 13th of November 2023, and today is 3rd of September 2024. So it's almost a year. And I feel like it's a really fun, no, not fun. Some days are fun, some days are really tiring to come up with something to draw. But it's just like an active way of designing things every day. And I feel like having the word diagram to navigate what you draw helps you find a direction. And drawing it every day challenges like your creativity. Like, how are you gonna find something different to draw if you're doing the same thing every day? If you wanna see more of this, go into my Instagram. I made a reel. We love reels. Okay, and the last class is just an open studio like the last one. So I wasn't actually in this open studio because I came back to Thailand, but I had a friend set it up for me. Going back into the more academic side of things, after you're finished with these projects, you have to make a portfolio showing all of your process, your reflection, your decision making. So everything that happened during the making of this project. What will really help you to make this final portfolio is to record everything that you do and everything that you're learning, everything that is affecting your decision making, and take photos of everything. How UAL judges you, I mean for my course, is only from this portfolio. They're not gonna judge you from the physical outcome that you make. You have to take photos of this and then present it into this portfolios. I feel like the most important bit that they want to see is these types of pages where you show your learnings and realization, how working on this project is impacting you as a designer. So this was part 1. This is only unit 6. I feel like I want to make it into 2 videos. Thank you if you're listening to this point of the video, because maybe it's just boring. If you want to see part 2 where I talk about unit 5 and 7, subscribe. Okay, I'll see you in part 2.